Pirate Stompy is back with a Final Fantasy sub-theme. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and now that the Final Fantasy set is live, I know what I have to do. And Anubis has given us a spicy take on a Moon Stompy deck that is pirate themed, or more specifically, Scout, Pirate, and Rogue themed. So, Vaan Street Thief, one of the characters from Final Fantasy XII, says, whenever one or more scouts, pirates, and or rogues you control deal combat damage to a player, exile the top card of that player's library. You may cast it. If you don't, you get a treasure token. And whenever you cast a spell you don't own, put a +1/+1 counter on each scout, pirate, and rogue you control. So immediately, this should be giving Ragavan vibes, but there's some noticeable differences, such as its mana cost being tripled, and it being closer to an either-or situation rather than a both, with the treasure token and card. What kind of makes this interesting is that whenever you cast one of these spells, you can buff your team. So there are some things that are pirates that we would normally be playing in this deck that give us that synergy for free. And then we kind of need to go into the jank a little bit to get some more pirate scouts and rogues that are reasonable. So Taurian Maulder is a below average power level card by Legacy standards, but it's definitely not embarrassing. If your opponent is sitting there cantripping, this can get big quickly, but the primary issue with this card is that it does not trample. I believe, does Mana Gorger Hydra trample, just as a vintage comparison? Yeah. I have unironically played this in Vintage before, and I have played a couple of Legacy Leagues with this as well. And it is a very high variance card, but it can do stuff. I am worried that without Trample here, this is just going to be very embarrassing versus something like an Orcish Bowmasters, but we'll see how it performs. The initial deck that was sent to me didn't have Fury and the One Ring, and I had to slot those back in. This card is busted, and when you can be playing an Ancient Tomb deck, you should probably be playing this card most of the time. I think this lets you get away with a lot of other questionable cards in the main deck without sweating it. And I think if you are trying to get through with Vaan, you really need Fury. Like, you need some sort of red removal to push this creature through. This does not innately have evasion, like something like Broadside does. So I think the combination of these two cards powers up the deck a lot. The initial deck that was sent to me had 4 more lands and 4 Magus of the Moon. So those were my 8 in, 8 out. Otherwise, the main deck is unchanged. And I don't think I edited the sideboard either. Painter is starting to see a slight uptick due to the Urza Saga rules change, so having an Emrakul in the board to make that match significantly easier isn't all that bad of an idea, and occasionally it'll do something cool versus a show and tell deck as well. So, is this build going to break Legacy? Nah, probably not. You know, cards like Pyrogoyf and main deck Magus of the Moon are probably going to do more than these cards today, but will we probably pop off a couple of times and do something really cool with these? I hope so. Let's find out. Folks, if you need any of the cards from the Final Fantasy set, it's early, forgive me. You need any cards from this set, check out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. They're great. Promo code ThrabenU saves you 5% on your order. You always get free shipping, and that 5% works on anything, even Tabernacle, even dual lands. So get in there, save yourself some money. Plus, their customer service just rules. All right. With that being said, let's battle. Okay. My opening hand can go Chalice of the Void on turn 1, but then doesn't do anything else. If I miss out on a mana source or my Chrome Mox was randomly taken or countered or hit with a prismatic ending, that would be really bad. I think I'm just going to mulligan this one. The second hand is very powerful. And objectively speaking, the best thing to do with this opening hand is just play Fable of the Mirror Breaker on turn 1. and imprint one of these 2 red cards that remains, which is sort of disappointing. But stabilizing my mana with the treasure is very, very, very important. There is a small chance that I could end up casting... Oh no, I am on the play. Excuse me. There's no chance that I'm going to cast that card then. So imprint, Ancient Tomb, and Fable. And then if I draw a land, I can probably loot away this other Ancient Tomb, and then use the One Ring to bury my opponent. If Fable resolved, there is a very good chance that my One Ring will resolve as well. Alright, it is a blue pile. I think I'm going to loot through the bonus land here anyway. Simian Spirit Guide. That, I guess, lets me play around some Daze effects. Send it. 18. I'm very likely to resolve this right now. I could just play the other Fable as a very strong value-oriented play and play the One Ring next turn. I think I am going to do that. Got a Brainstorm in response, and the second Fable sticks. So now I'm hitting for 4 a turn while producing 2 extra mana and threatening Fable of the Mirrorbreaker Crimes as well. And my opponent might be doing something like just tapping out for an Up the Beanstalk here, which puts them very, very far behind in terms of tempo. It is another One Ring. Yeah, that's good. With double Shaman in play, I'm going to loot through this Spirit Guide. Thundering Eruption is fine. Go ahead and send it on in for 4. Opponent goes to 13. I think I'm going to take 2 here. Keep some treasures around. For the One Ring. Draw my card. Is that fine? Sure. I can still pay life. That's not damage there. If I suspected that I was going to hit a spell, I could have done this in the reverse order and saved some life by doing Ancient Tomb after I got the One Ring protection. But in the instances where I hit mana, which is roughly 50% of the time, that is a worse line. All right, there is a Goyf. Okay. Which is super reasonable. We'll hopefully just find a Fury and get that out of the way. That'll do too. So draw some cards. Is there a sorcery in the graveyard? There is not a sorcery in the graveyard. So this is effectively a 5 toughness creature. Is this just Sundering Eruption you can't block turn? That might just be the case. And then I kill it with actual treasure tokens next turn. I can also just Shatterskull smashing it for some amount of damage after my opponent blocks with it. So significantly worse versus Force of Will, though. I think I'm just going to believe in my deck to draw something else to finish this off. Attack my opponent's black mana here. Let's send in like this. Opponent is at 4. I could also just One Ring fog this so that my opponent can't attack with it and gain life with it on their turn, guaranteed. I am, I think, okay with that. Keep this one, get my protection, draw my card on this around Bowmaster, and then I'll still get 2 draws from One Ring, plus my draw step next turn to finish off this problem. And my pirate will scale up. I am going to stop yielding through this turn so that the next time Taurian Mauler goes on the stack, I can always yield to it, or always yes to it. So that can potentially be black mana, and it is. It's an Overlord. All right, and always yes to that, always yield to that. And we'll see if my opponent finds something like a Solitude here. They didn't. Now, they could still have Swords to Plowshares, but I can do a check for that with Chalice of the Void. So I lose 1. Fury is superb. I'll draw 2. Yeah, so now we have multiple different things that win the game. One Ring confirmed good. I'm going to start... Actually, I just do all of this. Let's start with Chalice of the Void immediately. So this stops Swords to Plowshares based options. Then I will... Oh, I can't do all of it if I also want to copy. Shit. All right, that was a mistake. So I now can Fury and Sundering Eruption. That's still short of mana. Oh, I should not have played that Chalice. That was very, very, very bad. I guess it's still fine if the Fury resolves. Yeah, it's still fine. A couple of different ways. So now, if this resolves, I mark 4 damage on that. Let that resolve. And then copy it with Reflections twice. And even if there was a Solitude, I can now copy in response. So that'll do. This one has haste. Yeah, I didn't need to play the Chalice there. Didn't get punished for it. I could have played that tighter. Okay, we don't have anything else in the board that helps deal with Goyfs, which is a problem card for this archetype, and especially so if I am playing more things that don't innately have evasion. My Chalices are potentially going to be pretty mediocre here. My opponent's probably going to have a lot of removal and many, many, many spells that don't care about Chalice. I might be better off playing Rebs or Trinispheres. The moon effects are very good here, though. I think I'm going to turn these to things to pitch to Fury and go under Chrome Mox, and then call that fine. Okay, my mana doesn't work with this hand. This one's an easy mulligan. This is a bad hand. I don't know that I want to go to 5. I can get bailed out by things like Fable, but this is not great. If I am willing to fully give up playing this or another 3-drop that I draw on turn 1, I can just get rid of Chrome Mox. It would be going down another card, but it might be optimal to just jam this on turn 1. All right, let's see how it feels playing that on turn 1. My guess is medium. All right, well, there's something that can go under the Chrome Mox rather than the Reb. And then we'll throw Vaan out there. We've got second land drop. We'll see if my opponent is going for basics here. They are, which is fine for me. I only have 4 Blood Moon effects rather than 8, so I'm getting a lot of virtual value here. All right, Legal Ragavan. How do you do for us? Prismatic Vista. I don't have any ignoring color cost thing here, right? Yeah, I don't. So I choose no. I will make my treasure token so that in the future I can cast things that look like that. But it might just be correct to cast Fury and stay aggressive. This is way better versus removal, although this is awkward if my opponent just throws down a Gwaif immediately. So I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with that play pattern. I think if you could cast a 5-drop on turn 2, you just do it. Third basic land. Oh boy. So Estrid's Invocation is going to be very, very good here. Hopefully I just kill my opponent with what's in play. I think that is far, far from guaranteed. Opponent's at 9. Yeah, so now I don't have green for this. Am I casting yet another creature onto this board? Probably. And I think I'm just going to take 2 to do so that I can keep this treasure around even if I need to Red Elemental Blast a Force of Will effect. Alright, so this is Estrid's Invocation. So this now comes back into play. There's not a window there where I can Red Elemental Blast that. So my opponent gets to draw a new card. And maybe they're just dead. That is another basic. Wow. Alright, so I get a +1/+1 counter. But my opponent gets 2 cards out of this interaction, and my Reb doesn't interact with it. So this takes 6 power off of the board, presuming that Fury is what is going, which I believe is accurate. And then I get to crash in for 5. This is an opponent. This isn't me. My opponent is discarding cards. Simian Spirit Guide, not what I want to draw here. Maybe my opponent will have something cool on the top of their deck that I can take. 5. This would return under its owner's control. And I don't have an enchantment. We're saying no to that. And I think with 2 treasure tokens available, I now just cast this as a regular duder. Because my opponent can turn Estrid's Invocation into a Leyline Binding now to answer my Mauler. And this still leaves theoretical lethal in play. Oh, nope, just cards. Hope I don't eat like a Supreme Verdict here. What does this do? Yuna and enchantment creatures you control have Trample, Lifelink, and Ward 2. At the beginning of your end step, return up to 1 target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Okay. Opponent is cooking. These cards sure aren't blue, by the way. What does this one do? Oh, it's the land token. That's right. All right, let's just draw a broadside. Nope. So now this isn't bigger, this doesn't have evasion, and this is a spirit guide. We're just gonna lose. That's very disappointing. Yeah, nice red elemental blast idiot, I think is the current situation. So we'll see what my opponent chooses this time. All right, now we are going for the Maulder, which is reasonable. I think as soon as my opponent has Force of Will, this game becomes difficult to win. So my opponent gets another land token, gains 8 at, 9, is that 3? Okay. Bad news either way, obviously. I think I am just going to do this here for the sake of using the mana. Again, if my opponent has a Force of Will already, I don't really know how I win. Momentum Breaker. You gain life equal to your speed, and this is an Edict. Okay. I don't know, maybe I spike something crazy with this, and my opponent doesn't have a removal spell. Yeah, that's not good. So it is very clear to me that if I win this game, it is in the early game, because this end game stuff is going to eat me alive. Red Elemental Blast is missing way more stuff than I expected. It can still counter an Estrid's Invocation or a Brainstorm or whatever, but my opponent has more green stuff than I would like. I might just do this to be able to send 6 damage at face and finish off the game. This has the One Ring, which is a busted card, but this does not take advantage of the fact that I am on the play very well. If the One Ring resolves, this is fine, but not all that good. I think I just mulligan this one. This is fine. We can Force of Will check my opponent on turn 1, which I think I will do. There's the Moon. It has resolved. Now, my opponent does have a bunch of basics in their deck, but this is going to make their life significantly more awkward one way or another. There's a mountain. And now it doesn't matter that I can't just deploy this immediately. All right, there's a forest, so Up the Beanstalk could be live. Abundant Growth. That's a good one. So now my opponent has access to colors. It is still likely to constrain their mana a decent amount, but they have access to their colors, so things like swords are live. Next land drop, and we're chilling. I'm sending in. It's Bowmasters. This is a threat that doesn't line up very well versus Bowmasters, unfortunately. So I lose on that, out on this, and my opponent still has something in play that's good versus the One Ring. This is a major strike against this card. Fury exists. I will make a land drop. I'm going to put a second one of these in play so that my opponent can't get rid of it. They might have single-colored mana, but they still can't do some things like Hardcast and Overlord. It is possible that holding the Blood Moon to attempt to loot it away with a Fable drawn is fine. All right, Overlord misses. This is looming. I think I'm pretty likely to lose this one. Yep, that's a blank. So if this is a threat that lines up better versus Bowmasters, I'm still attacking for a little bit of damage. But the Moon gamble that I took on turn 1 did not pay off. And I think that was realistically the point where this game was lost. I take 1, Overlord ticks down. Welp, I mean, I'm gonna cast it. It eats a counterspell, unfortunately. Oh, we got Overlord of the Flood Pits. I don't even remember what that one does. Draw 2, discard a card. Sure. And Felia. I'm just going to concede here. We're going to lose to this. But it will take a little while. GG's. Opponent's deck is sweet. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. If you want to see upcoming sets, if you want to understand commander brackets, or if you just want an awesome place to store all, and I mean all, of your deck lists, Moxfield is the place. You can organize all of your decks by folders, and you can even change the views. You like visual, they've got that. You like text, they've got that. Check out my Moxfield Pro Field if you want to see all, and I mean all, of the decks that I've been cooking up. We've got a weird one here. I am on the play. I'm going to keep it. The hand is not particularly good. Something that I say a lot is that a hand that does not have a follow-up for a lock piece isn't a keep. We technically have a follow-up. It is very slow, though. I'm kind of counting on the deck to just draw any non-land card within 2 draws for this hand to improve. Now we've got the Long Pause before Basic Forest. This could be something like Cradle Control, where this becomes a real card and shuts off a bunch of utility lands. We'll find out. Yeah. Second basic land, naturally. Not great for me. This game probably goes long enough that I just hardcast that without using a Spirit Guide for mana. The Noble Ape Spirit. That is cycling a Lorien Revealed for Underground Sea, which is a mountain. There's an Uro. Blue, blue, green, green is probably not happening through Blood Moon. That's the good news here. I'll send in, chip away at that Uro life. And honestly, I'm going to throw down another Blood Moon in case my opponent has Brazen Borrower effects that could take one out of play. I don't want my opponent to have a single turn where they can bring back something that looks like this or cast a Goyf. I'm going to send in for 2. Put my opponent to 19. We will play a basic mountain and now a real threat. Not killing our Spirit Guide, obviously. There's another Uro. Bring my opponent up to 22, allowing them to play another mountain. Well, that's insane, obviously. Send in for 8 damage. Opponent's at 14. All my stuff has just resolved this game, which is great. That was a low agency game for my opponent. They did not have much that they could do. Chalice into Blood Moon was a 1-2 punch that came out of the gates very, very quickly there. So again, we're in the same situation as last round where we don't really have more things that we can do versus Goyfs. So I can do Red Elemental Blast for Murktides, Hardcast Lorien Revealed, cantrips. I could do that over Chalice, which potentially makes sense. I could also do the same thing I did last time where I played 2 Rebs and 2 Fiery Confluences to just go to the Dome, and that would not be crazy either. I think I'm going to try this. This is a medium power level hand that has a Blood Moon. I think this is fine, but we're probably going to see Taurian Maulder just feel very, very mediocre in this matchup. I'm currently weighing ETB tapped land versus saving this as a spell versus Orcish Bowmasters specifically. There's a red card for Fury and Chromox. I'm willing to take the 3 later if I have to. And then we'll see what my opponent is doing with lands. It is a Surveil land. Okay, paid off for not playing Shadow Skull Smashing. Double paid off for it. So, do I want to play Blood Moon into Force of Will or Hydroblast here? Probably the upside is insane. We will go for it. There is a Hydroblast. And now opponent can try to cantrip and set up something cool for the future. And I will just throw down a couple of Pirates, Brushwags, whatever you want to think Taurian Maulder of. Pick your favorite creature type. Avatars. Getting Trop. And then pondering. Sure. Chromox doesn't really matter here, I don't think. I'm going to save my stuff as spells. Was Mana Gorger Hydra both players, by the way? I think it was. Yeah, it was. Big difference. In addition to just the trample. Alright, there's Basic Island. I suspected that my opponent had that if they weren't going to go... Woohoo, Pernicious Deed. That makes playing out another spell pretty awkward. If they weren't going to get that with Lorien Revealed. It doesn't really make sense for me to play out another spell here. This isn't really enough pressure. My opponent now has a turn of breathing room, which I really don't want to give them. That land is kind of whatever. Send in with the Mauler. Opponent is at 13. I think I don't even play that land immediately. I think I am just going to pass here. I'm fine if I trade Pernicious Deed for just Taurian Mauler. Again, though, it's so much breathing room for my opponent. Now they get to untap and play something out before I have another threat going. Yeah, this is where the Uros of the world can do a lot of work. And another land drop. And a basic. Last game we got to just completely ignore Uro, and the same is not true here anymore, was going to be the remainder of that sentence. I think I Taurian Mauler first, and then play Blood Moon off City of Traders. That way, if my opponent has a Force of Will or Hydroblast effect, Taurian Maulder gets to scale. Alright, there's Brainstorm. Always yes, always yield. This Blood Moon is big game. Because this is the difference between having to deal with an Uro or not. So we need to dodge Force of Will and Hydroblast. Which honestly feels kind of unlikely. Tropical Island. And there is a Hydroblast. So now my opponent is going to get an Uro. Oh, is it worse? Am I also losing the Mauler? I'm also losing the Mauler. That was rough. So my opponent has blue, blue, green, green, plus Wasteland. Now I am looking for the raw power of something like the One Ring to carry me through this. My opponent still has a bunch of cards in graveyard, so just Pyroblasting the Uro isn't enough here. Yeah, surely I get Wastelanded. Well, I mean, yep, that is literally the card that I asked for. Yeah, that's bad. Okay, I mean, maybe I top deck another One Ring. I'm going to hold the Shadow Skull Smashing to potentially pitch cast Fury if I draw a Broadside. But now my opponent has, like, they've had that breathing room time to cantrip and get Uro going. Uro is tough for these decks to beat. The persistent sources of life gain, like Uro and Barrogoyf, are incredible. 5 mana available to hardcast Force of Will. I think this is becoming a tapped land drop. Attempt to save 6 life. Opponent just saying no. Yep. No, I think I was wrong in playing the tapped land. I had talked about drawing Broadside specifically previously. Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to hold it for a turn. I don't want to telegraph that. Take 6, go to 2. I don't think I'm winning even if I hold this back. Like, it is an out to take the Uro off the board for 1 turn, but like my opponent is at 25 life with 6 cards in hand. And the Uro will just come back. Oh, that just kills me now. Yep. Just for giggles. Next draw was pretty mid. Next draw was pretty mid, unless Broadside also lives, but I probably would have played that out. Yep. I don't think I'm going to change sideboarding here. Like, you could ley line for Uro. I don't think I am going to. Because that involves taking some threats out of my deck, which I don't really want to do. My opponent had good counter magic that game, and it let them efficiently keep up with my 3 mana cards. They traded 3 of my mana for 1 of their mana with Hydroblast, and that was quite good. We'll mulligan this. I'm unhappy with this. I don't think I'm going to mulligan again, but I am unhappy with this. I think I am going to slow my roll for a turn here and play Mountain on 1. These could be Magus of the Moon. Just throwing it out there. Oh my god. Alright. These are legendary creatures, so I can't play these out in multiples, which is rough. I can accelerate into a hardcast Fury next turn, potentially. Opponent's gonna fetch. Probably get their Surveil land, unless they have Fatal Push, in which case that keeps more of these live, which is actually a good thing for me. We've got Underground Sea. Bowmasters is available now, which again is very good against this. I'm going to play my card that scales up over time, rather than one of the... Well, actually, I guess this is optimal sequencing, right? Because I play this one, it potentially gets bigger, and then I play this one and trigger the ability. Got to pause on end step. That might be my opponent considering whether or not they're going to just cast a Bowmasters. It is Assassin's Trophy instead. So I will get a land into play, which is actually kind of nice, because that's a way to keep my City of Traders around. We've got Ponder. We're very much at the stage of the game where I'd prefer these to be like Magus of the Moon and Pyrogoyf. And like Lelia and Tersa probably look better. We're going to continue to jam these, though. I don't think I'm going to cast a Spirit Guide as a 2-2 here. I don't think that's going to be what this game is about. End of turn Brainstorm. Prevail land from my opponent on their own turn. Lots of fuel in the graveyard for something like an Uro. Looks like we've dodged that. I don't get to dodge Bowmasters just coming in, ambushing, and killing this and leaving a friend around. I think that just is what it is. Send in. Yeah. I think Bowmasters alone is enough of this, enough of a strike to not play this card in Legacy. This is lining up just so very poorly. And it gets worse if my opponent can just Hydroblast my Fable that I am going to play. I think I am just doing now, despite the fact that there is the Bowmaster in play. I think I'm just okay enough with my cards that I do this. Next turn, I am theoretically fine hardcasting a Fury pre-combat to try to get in. There's the Hydroblast. I tried to bait that by playing this first, but this is not a good enough card to bait interaction, which is rough. So 5th land drop from opponent, hardcast Force of Will is now live. 1 basic for Blood Moon, Malevolent Rumble. Oh, there's Uro. Uh-oh. So Uro's in hand. Oh, am I just eating removal immediately? I am eating removal immediately rather than Uro immediately. Oh, I am eating Uro immediately as well. Not great. I suspect that I am losing this one now. Green, green, blue, blue. I could attempt to Sundering my opponent's forest and hope that they don't have a way to deploy a follow-up threat. Or I could cast Fury, remove Bowmasters, and make it so that the One Ring is better in a minute. I think we are taking out the land and just hoping my opponent doesn't have a Trop or another fetch land or whatever. I don't suspect that there's going to be a second basic forest here. They can have their swamp. I guess I'm hoping that my opponent misses and then I draw a Blood Moon effect. So much for the One Ring becoming better. I guess I can still hardcast a Fury and now I get a second body. I guess that's fine. I'm gonna go for hardcast Fury. And then I can Broadside later. This would be a devastating Hydroblast. Snapcaster Mage. Or Hydroblast in yard. Yeah. That was in fact worse than just a Hydroblast. Yeah. So my opponent got 2 of my cards, Spirit Guide plus Fury, for the Hydroblast, and they still have Snapcaster left around afterwards. That's not great. Another Broadside. This is a 2/2 blocker, because there's 3 different X1 creatures over there, or rather 3 different 1-power creatures over there that I can successfully block. I am fully at the mercy of my opponent finding a green land, and I can't... Well, I guess I could top deck a Fury and clear a lot of this out. Top deck Fury, clear 4 creatures. Still just be in terrible shape to Uro afterwards, though. Alright, everybody is coming to party. If you got another Bowmaster, you got another Bowmaster. No, just raw damage. Totally reasonable. It is Witherbloom Command instead. Yep. And then my opponent gets their other green source. We are dead. GG's, definitely feeling the gap in power level between like this and Magus of the Moon and Pyrogoyf. Okay, I am on the draw. My hand is medium. I am probably going to keep it. My Streamlabs just crashed, and I think everything is reset properly. Basic Island makes Blood Moon significantly worse, obviously. I don't really want to get wastelanded. I think I am just going to play this as a tapped land. I could play City on 1 into Blood Moon on 2. It's fine. I think there is a decent chance that the Blood Moon gets dazed or whatever, and I want to just fire off 2 different things using this specific City of Traders. And notably, I am doing this here to stabilize my mana, rather than expecting that this cuts my opponent off of colors. If this resolves, I don't need to worry about Wasteland taking my only red source, which is a very easy way to lose this game. Alright, there is a daze. We can try again next turn if we don't die to Entomb here. Dodged it. There is another land. Underground Sea and Tamiyo. Yep. Now I might need to prevent Tamiyo from flipping to a Brainstorm by attempting this. It worked. Now I'm going to lose a City of Traders and get something else going here. The Blood Moon doesn't super make sense without the 3rd land drop in hand anymore. I think I'm just going to play something that I would be willing to throw with a Broadside. This is also something that scales up well to attack a Tamiyo. Very vulnerable to Wasteland, which I have also dodged. Tamiyo is coming in for the clue, which makes sense to me. I could now attempt to stabilize mana via Blood Moon. Don't know if that makes sense. Broadside is in play. I'm going to fire on in. There's things like Shoulder's Edict and Bowmasters that can still happen here. Damage goes through. I will, I think, just pass the turn then. I could throw Taurian Mauler for 5. It is possible that I won't get more than 5 damage out of that card. I could also throw it at ThrabenU. I don't think I'm going to do either. Tracking a clue. 12. It's not Entomb for multiple different reasons. Force of Will goes to Yard. Land drop 4. ThrabenU coming in. Tracking a clue. And passing the turn. I'm going to absolutely just throw down on another Broadside here. Very awkward to play around Daze right now, so I'm not going to. Okay, I'm in play, in which case my opponent is dead if nothing else happens. They are at 6. Broadside, target your face. Throw a Mauler. Broadside, target your face. Throw the other Broadside. I think Chalice just soloed that game, which is rare. So we did not see any pieces of Reanimator, and we also didn't see any of the tempo threats. So now we are in this situation where we don't know whether or not our opponent is playing Reanimator, since my opponent casts so few spells due to Chalice. And I have to decide whether or not I want to just Leyline in the dark. I don't really think my Blood Moons are going to be that good on the draw. I'm going to board those out. I can take the called shot that they are Reanimator and play Leylines, or I could play Red Elemental Blasts. To deal with ThrabenU, I could play Red Elemental Blasts while boarding out Chalices and still play Leylines, and my deck is not embarrassing. I think this is what I'm going to do, but I won't mulligan to Leyline. And then if we go to a... The universe has a sense of humor. Mountain, Chromox, Imprint, Land, Spirit Guide, Taurian Mauler. Play the One Ring slightly thereafter. I think I'm willing to keep this. I'm going to keep the other MDFC. Underground Sea and Ponder. Well, I figured out what we're going to put under Chromox. So, land drop. Chromox. Awkwardly Imprint Leyline. And I am going to just use this, even though the Spirit Guide is like absolutely better served on the One Ring. I think this just needs to be given an opportunity to eat a Daze, so the One Ring does not. There's Underground Sea. Oh, that's rough. The One Ring is obviously the take. My deck is roughly 50% mana, and if my opponent got greedy and took Shadow Skull Smashing and I drew a Soul Land, it would just be the ultimate punish. This isn't wastelandable, so I'm going to play that in case I top deck the One Ring next turn. Hey, not wastelandable. Did not immediately top deck the One Ring, though. Okay, it is Reanimator. Getting Archon, which I don't really answer if it's in play. At least not on this degree of resources. Opponent does not have it, luckily. They kept an interactive hand. Oh, or are you a second main phase hipster? You are a second main phase hipster. You also have a different card that is going to just beat me. And I bottomed out here. I am comfortable conceding there. So again, our deck doesn't really get better at answering black creatures. I already have my Leylines boarded in. I think, just going to whack the submit button. I'm going to think about Chalice of the Void on the play, though, versus Red Elemental Blast. And I think to make myself better versus Entomb, I'm going to play the Chalices over the Red Elemental Blasts when I am on the play. This is a mediocre hand. I think I am willing to mulligan at least once looking for a reasonable Leyline hand. And this is a reasonable Leyline hand. This is Leyline and Chalice on turn 1, followed probably by Fable. I think I'm going to get rid of Broadside here. Start with Leyline in play, and then put my opponent to the Force of Will test on top of that. Okay, cool. This is a very strong start. We now want to dodge a Goyf. That's the thing that is very scary from here. And to a lesser extent, Brazen Borrower is a little bit of a pain in the butt. That's actually a very good draw, because that means I don't need to take 3 here when I play my Fable. Okay, all my spells have resolved. So my opponent did not keep a hand with Force of Will or Daze. It's possible they just kept a Entomb Reanimate hand and were hoping to dodge Chalice and failed. Or it's possible that Brazen Borrower is coming. I guess Both of these kind of need to be answered, though, unless my opponent randomly spikes a creature with a Surveil land. All right. This is a great time to loot. I'm going to get rid of 2 lands here and just try to turn them into reasonable spells. This could eat it to Bowmasters here. It doesn't. We are now on the sad beatdown plan, which is just maybe going to be enough with Fable coming. Got an end of turn action. No Brazen Borrower. Hot damn. Opponent had natural basic lands going for them in their opening hand. It's that jerk. There's a new Leyline of the Void. I think I'm going to throw away a token here to make what I want to do safer. Because I need to do this for x equals 3 as of right now. But there's also not an instant in the graveyard. So I think I'm going to send in with the token specifically to make an extra mana and try to mark 2 damage on this creature. All right, success. 18. Now I'm going to do this for 1 more than I need to, just in case things get a little weird with an extra card hitting the graveyard somehow. All right, fantastic. Hopefully there's just not another one. Cool. Cool and good. Okay. I am unfortunately passing the turn here. I'm not going to cast this other Spirit Guide in case I draw something like Fury that I want to hardcast. Surveil land can send something else to exile. And Sign to Memory. It's another land drop for my opponent. We are staring at each other. In which case, at end step, I will make another one of these that can hang out until my own end step. Hey, there's a Fury, which is exactly why I didn't cast that. This is Dazable. I could wait until this isn't Dazable, but that gives my opponent more time to find a Force of Will. Oh, what if I just pitch cast it instead? I get a lot of damage with it if it works, and I play around Daze. Yeah, that's fine. Pitch cast. 4 damage on Goyf. Reflection of Kiki Jiki. Target the Fury. 4 damage to nobody. This all has gone very well for the fact that my opponent had 2 of those. This will put my opponent at 7. Now, obviously, I have to sacrifice some stuff here, so my board gets worse. But hopefully, most of my opponent's deck is now shut off. A Brazen Borrower could happen on Chalice of the Void and unlock a bunch of my opponent's spells. But it didn't. Okay, cool. Or second main phase hipster. Second main phase hipster. Animate Dead on Fury. Well, that's annoying. That kills both of my creatures. And is a relatively fast clock still. I guess that's the downside of playing around Daze, huh? I'm not going to take 2 damage to cast a Leyline of the Void. I'm going to be upset if I lose after locking my opponent out this hard. That I will cast, I guess. Not like that, though. I will give up a Leyline and a treasure token. Not take damage there. Thing is, this doesn't beat Fury until my opponent casts another spell. That is a Daze. So I don't know how long my opponent has had that Daze, but it is possible that playing around it was correct previously. Yes. But this is definitely awkward. It is getting hard for me to cast spells. It's maybe even not correct to do that. I just let that go so that I can cast other spells. I'm now going to 2. I now have to chump block with this. And it's not a strong enough threat to be killing my opponent like something like a Pyroglyph would. Very frustrating. So I lose my creature in combat. I will make this land drop. Play a chump blocker for Fury. Nope, opponent's got Force. I'm dead. Yep. Yeah, so I shut off all of my opponent's graveyards. I shut off all of my opponent's 1-drops and still lost. Yup. GG's. Best deck in the format. Alright, we are struggling to buy a win today. Paired against another blue-black deck. And I don't know what my opponent is going to take here. Blood Moon could be the thing that is most damning for them, but if they take that, I get to just start the game with probably 2 aggressive threats in a row. So I could see an argument for just taking Chrome Mox in an attempt to slow me down. Now, I have to decide whether or not I'm willing to imprint one of these cards, or whether it's better to just take a turn off to play both as real threats. The Thoughtseize made this hand go from very good to very bad, unfortunately. It's still very good if this is a red card, but it wasn't. I think I take a turn off, and I'm just very sad about it. Got land drop 2, a Tamiyo. Man, that's rough. That's rough. The deck is 50% mana, so it's not like all that unlikely for that to happen, but that's really what I don't want to see. I think I have lost this game. I think my Taurian Mauler gets removed here, and then Tamiyo's card advantage carries the game because I don't have a stream of threats here. Yup. Cracking the clue and passing the turn. So I think so that I can play around days, I'm going to drop this. But this card doesn't really do anything. If my opponent can't deal with it, they just hold Tamiyo back, and the 0/3 body blocks this 2/2 body with no evasion. It did resolve. Sat on the stack for a while, which might have been my opponent just puzzling through things. We got a really long pause from my opponent before a ponder happened. And they like their cards. It is a Thoughtseize. I lose the Broadside. So now my hand doesn't do anything again. My opponent just holds back the 0/3, and my threat that I paid 3 mana for is invalidated. And note, this is not on attack, this is on combat damage. Not great for me. I desperately need a Fable of the Mirrorbreaker to loot through these cards. That's rough. And now, this has bought my opponent time to bridge the game to things like Goyf. Didn't happen, luckily. Opponent junks a Daze. I need some payoff card here. Opponent just gets to animate dead my stuff. This is awful. So my opponent now has a Broadside. They can throw the clue token to kill my threat. Yep. And that same pattern can repeat itself, so I have 4 dead cards in hand. I'm not even going to play it. I'm just going to pass the turn. I think I'm dead here. So there's another clue token, which represents killing my small threat. Or, you know, a card if I answer Broadside. Alright. My deck pooped itself. Best deck in the format, yada 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 yada. Alright, ley lines in. When I'm on the play, I think I'm going to Chalice. I'm going to get rid of Blood Moons. And if Chalice is staying in, I'm going to not attempt to answer Tamiyo with these. This is a good 5-card hand. Don't think I'm going to keep it. This is fine. This is turn 1 Chalice. Bam, bam. Turn 2 Fable. Sure. Land. Rummox. Imprint. And Chalice. It resolved. That's cool. That means my Fable is safe from Thoughtseize. It will still be Dazeable or Force of Willable or whatever. Do this. My Fable is the much better card. I'm going to play the Mauler first, and if Mauler eats Daze so that Fable doesn't have to, fantastic. It ate Force of Will. That's even better. That is a card in Graveyard for Animate Dead specifically. Reanimate Junked. Wasteland's great. That's a dead card. And now we just see if I end up losing to a Goyf or some other mid-game threat. Ancient Tomb, so a Daze doesn't get me, is like actually totally fine here. Cool. I still think I am very likely to lose to a Goyf here. Yep, we have seen this play pattern before. That's cool. This does grow this, because there's not an enchantment in yard yet. It's happening. So now I can either play around Daze or give my opponent 5 life. Or sorry, if I play around Daze, it gives my opponent 5 life. 5 life is a bajillion. I am not going to play around Daze. Alright, cool. Draw another One Ring. So I buy a turn to attempt to answer this, but Bowmasters would be a big deal. That Wasteland is also quite good. So lose 1. Get Fable. Please don't Bowmaster me. Nice. So, what to do? I could attempt a triple block on this. We'll see if my opponent attacks with it. I think I would be willing to trade 3 creatures. It's very awkward if my opponent then just has a Shoulder's Edict or whatever. If this hits and finds another one, it's so disastrous. I think I am going to go ahead and go for the awkward triple block. And then just hope that the One Ring carries me through the remainder of the game. Bowmaster's, again, absolutely absurd. Yes. Gonna get rid of this. I could loot the chalice. Alright, that's great. So, draw my cards here. Cool. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 if I play city. I think this is just a broadside this turn. Doesn't seem like my opponent has counter magic. 21. Am I willing to take 3 more before I play the next one? Yes. Let's land drop 4. No follow-up, which is great. I get a friend. I think I'm going bam. Broadside first, actually. Bam. Okay, it doesn't seem like opponent has anything. Bam. Go to combat. Declare attackers. Send in for 4. Do these triggers. I will not cast Ponder. Oh man, this is 1 or more. It doesn't trigger off both of them. Rough. I can now safely draw this. Broadside, target your face. Throw the 1 ring. Alright, we're just done. That's fine. So now on the draw, I can consider playing Red Elemental Blast because some stuff like Tamiyo comes in under Chalice. Chalice is still better versus Entomb Reanimate if it's just not like Entomb Animate Dead in the opener. I don't really know how I want to approach that. I did Rebs last time. I'm gonna go with Chalice. I'm not really sure if it's right, because the Tamiyo Planeswalker is annoying. This is a mediocre 7. It's fine. It's got 2 threats. I think I'm going to mulligan at least once looking for Leyline. This is Leyline, but no ability to cast any of my spells. We'll go to 5. This is a reasonable 5. And I just decide whether or not I am doing the Chrome Mox into City of Traders thing immediately. I'm always keeping this. Always keeping the threat here, even if it's not a good threat. Like, this is the 5 that curves out the easiest, but it's punished really hard by Wasteland. I think I am going to accept that. Start the game with the Leyline. So we're better against the Reanimator stuff, but I'm probably going to lose the game in the long run to the Tempo stuff. I'll lose my 1 threat here. My opponent's Reanimator stuff will be online after this happens, which is really annoying. Yep. I'm just going to play the basic as to not be wastelandable. And we'll play some Drago for a little while, till I draw something good. I'm just going to play this as a tapped land, and we'll see what my opponent has. Just a Surveil land. And a card they like, unfortunately. That's great. I don't think I play it this turn. I think I wait a turn to play around Days. It's just so critical to resolve this spell. Yep. Let's see if I die to the Entomb Reanimate stuff. Opponent didn't Entomb end of turn, so I guess that's good. This can become Chrome Mox fodder. So I think I'm going to Chrome Mox, imprint that Leyline. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is enough mana to cast both of these, but if I cast the 1 ring second, it's not played around Days. I think that means that I cast it first. Get bit in the butt by Force of Will. Pitching a Daze, though. After I see a Daze leave this hand, I am comfortable throwing down Fable. Hydroblast instead. Okay. So now opponent will have a 3-1 threat in play, and I am just living off the top again. Another land drop. Just surveilling immediately. Junking a situational counterspell. And Murktide Regent. I don't have Blast for that. So that's really bad. Cool. So now I take 9 and am probably dead if I don't draw the 1 ring. 9 puts me to 6. And now opponent can just try to find like a Hydroblast or something to back this up. Or can just like play out another threat like a Goyf. Alright, they're just taking a land to shuffle. Fury does not kill Murktide Regent. It kills Brazen Borrower, and then I die in the air. GG's, something, something, something. Best deck in the format, I think, for the 3rd round in a row. Okay, my opening hand here does not have enough mana. We're going to mulligan that one. Okay. As long as I don't lose Chrome Mox to like a Thoughtseize or Counterspell or Prismatic Ending or something, this is super reasonable. Alright, not a blue-black deck. We will at least get some different gameplay for the last round. We are potentially playing against lands. Yeah. And it is Life from the Loam. I mean, it's not like I'm not going to cast it. I'm going to imprint one of these since it's legendary. And despite the awkwardness here with my own mana, I think I am just going to go ahead and do this immediately. This prevents some of the craziest things that could possibly happen, but does introduce a scary line to the game where my opponent could play a Dark Depths, it would have 0 counters on it, and then Boseiju my Blood Moon. No dredge on the Life from the Loam. I'm roughly 50% to draw mana to deploy probably a Mauler here. Very glad that's not active because my mana is quite constrained. Map is a Dark Depths or a Boseiju. So that is very good for my opponent, unfortunately. And the Boseiju would be recursive from Life from the Loam. So I'm going to play that as a land. I will get a Mauler going. 2 mana. Once Upon a Time? Drop rotation. So this is Dark Depths plus Boseiju. Yep. I am, I think, not going to be able to Goldfish fast enough to beat that. Because if my opponent just has a land drop here, they do the thing, right? 2 mana to search Boseiju, and then get Boseiju for Blood Moon. Yep. So now I have to draw the One Ring. Oh, my opponent just Ghost Quarters Ancient Tomb to deny me a mana, and that makes that significantly worse. They didn't. I can't pay for this if my opponent takes the Ghost Quarter line. After I do this, I have 3 mana, and then I can't draw the One Ring. So that's just gotta go. No evasion here as well. Alright, we did not draw our out. I am dead to the 2020. GG. I am into Disruptor Flute. I think I'm into Fiery Confluence as a way to either finish the game or destroy my opponent's artifact mana that can make the Blood Moon more bearable. I think I'm going to go Chalice out. Chalice isn't that good. Okay, I've got a single mana source here. This is not going to do it. The 5-card hand is super reasonable. I can do the Blood Moon on turn 1 when it is most potent. So that involves these 3 cards. And then I probably want to have 3 land drops to be able to deploy something. The treasure generation here might be more interesting than Mauler. My opponent, in theory, is not going to cast that many spells. But this is fully a game that I think a Force of Vigor wins. So we'll see if it happens. There's the Moon. Does not seem like opponent has a Force of Vigor right now. That's horrifying. That's quite good. Obviously can't do it yet, but it's quite good. Forest Boseiju. I mean, same energy. Junking an Otawara, which is an exceptional card. That might mean that my opponent just has Life from the Loam to get it back immediately. Boseiju into haste dead. Boseiju into haste dead. Okay. GG's. We lost to our own card there, although we probably lose to these cards in conjunction anyway. All right, so that was an 0-5 league. Let's try to figure out what's going on. I think there's 2 separate things here. Number 1 is that Red Stompy is not very good in Legacy right now. It's a little less than 3% of the format. It's like the 10th most popular deck in the format right now. It has very much fallen from its previous status. And the reason for that is that its cards line up very poorly versus Reanimator. As we saw, if you have a Leyline of the Void to shut off your opponent's graveyard, they just answer one of your very good creatures and reanimate it, and that's usually enough to win the game. And Barrogoyf is just disgustingly good against red decks because it is often outside of the range of red removal. Beyond that, our specific build is worse against blue-black decks than normal. Bowmasters lines up favorably versus this. Bowmasters initially lines up favorably versus this. That is still a 1-for-1 trade. You cast Bowmasters, it is a 3/3, and then you just ping it and double block. So both of the additional threats that were added here line up poorly against Bowmasters. Vaan lines up poorly versus Tamiyo as a 0/3 blocker in addition to that, and the 0/3 blocker can also wall Taurian Mauler in the short term, and neither of these cards has evasion. Throughout this entire league, I did not cast a single spell off of its ability, and I did not put a +1/+1 counter on any of my creatures accordingly, and that is a sign that you should probably just not build the deck in this fashion. Taurian Mauler not having trample like Managorger Hydra does and not triggering off your own spells are kind of two strikes against it as well. I understand wanting to have the extra power for synergy, but again, current Legacy isn't really about synergy anymore. It is about playing singularly powerful cards, and neither of these fit the bill. So I think this league would have been, still very, very tough given the matchups we got with a traditional Moon Stompy deck. But we made ourselves worse against the blue-black decks of the format by making these changes, and that meant we really had an uphill battle today. So on the surface at the beginning of this video, I knew we were doing something suboptimal, but I didn't exactly realize how poorly these cards were going to line up against the blue-black deck. And I think this was a fine deck building lesson, even if the results today on the scoreboard were not good. So I think this is reasonable deck building on paper that once you get it into actual games, falls apart very, very quickly. So with that, I think we're going to call it a day. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you need some cards, you know where to go. Promo code ThrabenU. All right, see ya.